906 Outdoors is brought to you in part by Orion Hunting Products. I'm in Munising, and we're going diving for a look at some Lake Superior shipwrecks.
In Munising, or in the Alger Underwater Preserve, there's probably 35 different shipwrecks, but we have 7 sites that we actually dive.
9 million acres of forest, 1,700 miles of continuous shoreline, 4,300 lakes, 12,000 miles of streams, more than 300 waterfalls, 15 counties, 2 time zones, and 1 area code. Welcome to the Upper Peninsula. Welcome to 906 Outdoors. The Great Lakes have been sailed upon since at least the 17th century, and thousands of ships have been sunk while traversing them. Many of these ships were never found, so the exact number of shipwrecks in the Great Lakes is unknown. Estimations range from 6,000 to 25,000 ships and 30,000 lives. Michigan is considered a world-class destination to explore shipwrecks and ranks among the top 10 states in number of certified divers. The Great Lakes are considered by some to offer the greatest shipwreck diving in the world. I hopped aboard the Wreck Express with Captain Peter Lindquist of Glass Bottom Boat Tours in Munising and a crew of divers for a look at some Lake Superior shipwrecks.
So we just left the dock at the shipwreck tour, the Glass Bottom boats in Munising, and we always have them dress their tank and get their BC and the regulator in place and things like that. We came out here with a dive group, and we're getting ready to put everybody in the water. This marks the tugboat. So what we're going to do is we're going to back right up to it, and Jolene is going to hook the tugboat for us. Got it? And then they normally put on their wetsuits or dry suit and kind of get ready, but not too ready, because they have to suffer through our orientation. Once we get to the wreck, we like to tell them a little history of the wreck, etc. So anyway, welcome aboard the Wreck Express. I want to thank you all for coming and all of that, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy your diving and stuff. This is, right now we're on the wreck of the Stephen M. Selvig. Stephen M. Selvig was a tug that was built in about 1915, and it was utilized in the construction industry. Its big claim to fame was in the building of the Mackinac Bridge. In '94, we had it donated to the Alger Underwater Preserve by Selvig Marine and Towing down in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin, and we towed it up to Munising here. We cleaned it for 2 years, got permits from the DNR and the DEQ and EPA and everybody in the world, and sank it in '96. Anyway, right now it's in about 60 feet of water. We didn't realize that Mother Nature would beat it to death in 60 feet of water. We thought if we put it in 60 feet of water, it would be perfectly safe and it wouldn't change. But it's a solid rock bottom, and you'll know when you're down there that it's been beat a little bit, because this boat floated out here, and we sank it deliberately for sport diving. And now when you look at it, you'll see that it would never float. So anyway, we're attached right to the vessel. When you go down the line, you'll see the whole vessel. It's a 72-foot tugboat, about 100 tons, and you'll see the whole thing. We're hooked on to the bow, I think. Are we on? No, we're on the stern of the tugboat. 60 feet is max depth. Have a good time.
Today's show is brought to you in part by Rapid River Knife Works, home of Michigan's largest custom knife factory showroom.
So the Stephen M. Selvig was kind of interesting. We as a preserve realized we had an issue in that we have the wreck of the Smith-Moore, which is at 80 feet to the deck, 105 to the bottom, and we're going to dive that next today. And then we have the Bermuda as a contrast that's only 12 feet to the deck and 30 feet to the bottom, and that one we show on the Glass Bottom boat. But we didn't have anything in the intermediate range for a second dive, an intact dive for scuba diving. So for years, we were looking for a vessel to sink. And so we kind of started that process, and we got the DNR used to the idea, the legislators, and then I don't remember, it was like 1992, one of my diving friends, that one of my customers on the boat mentioned to me that Salwick Marine Towing had a vessel that they were thinking about scrapping out, and it was a 72-foot tugboat, 100 tons, and it was called the Stephen M. Salwick. Approached Salwick Marine and Towing down in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin, and lo and behold, we got the vessel for $1. We were able to tow it up to Munising. We did that over a 6 or 7 day period, and then we sat it at the city dock. We wintered it here in Munising, and we had divers after they had dove with us all summer long. We'd have them go over in the afternoon or whatever their time off, and then they would clean the tugboat. And so we got the thing all cleaned up, got our permitting all done with the state of Michigan, and we sank the Stephen M. Salwick back in '96, Memorial Weekend, and it was the first vessel sank in the preserves, and the only one actually to date that wasn't an accident. Stephen M. Salwick, I believe it was called the Cabot at the time, and the Stephen M. Salwick was the lead tug in the construction of the Mackinac Bridge. I didn't really know that when we picked up the tugboat. We were looking for history, because part of the laws in the state of Michigan that we had passed was that we wanted to sink vessels that had historic significance to the state, and that way, we could limit what was sank, and by the same time, keep historic things. We also designed the law, which is changeable, of course, if things need to be, so that each preserve could sink one vessel for sport diving. To date, no other preserve has sank a vessel deliberately for sport diving that wasn't an accident. The only other one in the state of Michigan that was sank is the Coast Guard cutter Mesquite up in the Keweenaw, which is also a preserve.
.906 Outdoors is brought to you in part by Blades Bait and Tackle, your year-round connection to fishing bait Enoch. The UP is loaded with must-see destinations. Here's one of them.
The Log Slide is an area just west of Grand Marais. It's located kind of at the west end of the Grand Sable Dunes, 200 to 250 feet high sand dunes. In the late 1800s, the loggers would construct a long wooden chute down to the lake shore and send their logs down that to Lake Superior. It's probably one of the only areas on Lake Superior that have dunes like that. Pretty neat area.
So we talked about the tugboat for years, not the tugboat itself, but about sinking a vessel for years. And then finally, we were talking to legislators, and we found out that if we passed the law requiring or allowing a vessel to be sank in each preserve, then the DEQ basically had to come up with an idea as to what to do to allow that. So we passed a law in the state of Michigan that allowed a vessel to be sank in each preserve. So from that point on, all of a sudden, it's like, okay, we have this tugboat, 72 feet long, we're going to sink it in the Algernon Water Preserve. How do you want us to do it? What do you want us to do before we sink it? They did nothing. We wrote a plan. We came up with guidelines about how to do it. You know, they came up and looked at the tugboat while it was at the dock and went through it, and yep, looks good to us. And then what they did was they made me sign that everything was done according to the plan. All right, so now we just finished the dive on the Stephen M. Selvig, and we accounted for everybody, and now we're headed over to the second dive site, which is going to be the Smith Moore. We're over the deck of the Smith Miller Moore. Back Friday the 13th of July, 1889, the Smith Moore left Marquette Harbor with a full load of iron ore, and she was a 237-foot, three-masted steamer. So she had sails, and she had a very underpowered steam engine. I think her steam engine was 300 horsepower. This boat has 600 horsepower. So you can imagine it's 237 feet long, full of iron ore, headed downbound. You get into a sea or a strong wind, you got problems. You know, trying to keep the head into the wind. And anyway, she left Marquette Harbor. By midnight, she was north of Grand Island by 10 miles in a dead fog, and she got involved in a bow collision with the James Pecans. And the Pecans was a similar vessel, similar size, and it continued on its way to Marquette because, you know, the captain figured that they got two pointy bows and they hit each other, you know, they just slide off each other and everything. Well, that didn't quite go. And then what happened was the bow was actually split on the Smith Moore. And the MM Drake, which is now a sunken vessel down in Whitefish Point, came and took the Smith Moore in tow. And then by 6 a.m. in the morning, the MM Drake had the Smith Moore coming into the harbor here. And old George Pryor was sitting in the lighthouse, and he was the lighthouse keeper. And he noted in the official lighthouse log, he said, 2 steamers entered Munising Harbor, 1 sank. today it's in 70 feet of water to the deck. It's still about 120 to the bottom if you're up on the bow. It's a little bit deeper than what you normally dive. So just be aware that even at 70 feet, there's a little bit of narcosis. Don't try and see the whole wreck because it's 237 feet long. When you get down to about 50 feet, it just opens right up, and you can see the wreck. We are attached right now to the to the engine at the stern of the vessel is where we're attached. Once she sank in 120 feet of water, bow pointed right at the lighthouse. 3 masts were still out of the water in 120 feet. So that shows you how big of a vessel it is. It was just huge. About a month or so later, they had a hard hat diver come up from Chicago. So he basically just shinnied down the mast, and they determined that the damage was pretty severe on the bow, and also that the cargo really wasn't worth that much. So they decided just to tear down their mast and let her lie. So that's what they did.
906 Outdoors is brought to you by Cooking Wild Seasonings. Make it fresh, make it yours.
Dive charters from Shipwreck Tours is a weekend situation. My son actually runs a dive charter for for two people, a minimum of 2 people during the week. But on the Wreck Express here, we're licensed for like 17 divers, but we put 12 on because that's where we're comfortable, and we take out divers on weekends. It's a fun business. Back about 25 years ago, I used to take out fishermen and divers, and we had to make a decision because it seemed like whenever I had divers, I had fishermen and blah blah blah, and so we ended up going for scuba diving, and we've been in that business ever since. But that was actually the beginning of the glass bottom boat because we had a lot of people that were interested in shipwrecks at the time, and every place I went, people asked me about shipwrecks. So we tried to figure out how to show people shipwrecks, and the glass bottom boat ended up to be what we did, and so we've been operating the glass bottom boat now for like 25 years. We take certified divers out. We don't teach diving, and basically on this boat we basically do divers that come with a shop, part of a group. We take onesies and twosies on the other boat, but we still don't certify diving. What you do is you have to learn how to dive where you live, basically, and then get certified. And then quite often you'll find that anywhere in the Midwest that those divers will come up and visit Munising. And we're normally the dive charter that they will use. I've had many divers start off by taking the glass bottom boat tour, and in the process they kind of get introduced to shipwrecks, and then what happens is they'll ask us, well, how do we get certified to dive? And so then we ask them where they're from. We 90% of the time we know of a dive shop that's in their area, and we recommend that dive shop, and then from that point on, you know, we might see them the next year on the dive boat because they rode the glass bottom, which is very interesting. Munising is, along with Alpena, is the first two underwater preserves in the state of Michigan. That happened, I think, in 1981, and we both got legislated in within a month of each other. And basically what it is, it's protection for shipwrecks so that you can't take anything. And our motto on diving is the same as what they do now in parks. We always say that you know, leave only bubbles is what we like to say. You know, take only pictures and leave only bubbles. That's why we're a preserve. In Munising, or in the Alger Underwater Preserve, there's probably 35 different shipwrecks, but we have 7 sites that we actually dive. We show 3 on 3 different sites on the glass bottom, but we show 2 shipwrecks on the glass bottom, and then on diving wise, we show like 7 different dive sites for diving, and we go as far as Au Point and dive the shipwreck of the Kiowa. And also at Spray Falls, we don't dive it, but we stop and talk about it. There's a shipwreck there that had the biggest loss of life, and I believe that was in 1860 something. It was the wreck of the Superior, and they lost 29 people on that wreck. The shipwrecks here in the preserve, most of them didn't have a loss of life. A lot of them crashed into the rocks or caught fire in the process of getting out of the harbor or things like that. And so there was a minimum loss of life as far as the shipwrecks are concerned.
Feel free to join us on Facebook or visit us at 906outdoors.com. Thanks for watching, and we invite you to join us next week for another adventure right here on 906 Outdoors.